The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. We have rare good news. There actually are sometimes good things to report, and a welcome piece of good news is that the giant panda has been downgraded from endangered to vulnerable on the global list of species at risk of extinction, which, number one, is just generally good news. Number two, it's good to confirm that when humans decide to do something, we actually can have an impact, because this is something that was very specifically worked on. It didn't happen just by chance. And the International Union for Conservation of Nature announced that there has been a 17% rise in the population of the giant panda in the decade up to 2014. So from 2004 to 2014, when a nationwide census found that there were 1,864 giant pandas in the wild in China. I actually don't get how you can determine how many pandas there are total in the wild with such specificity. I'm not denying that it's possible. I'm just saying that that's interesting to me. For 50 years, the giant panda has been the most beloved conservation icon. And now it is no longer endangered, but it is still vulnerable. A quote from the director general of the WWF, not the former name of the World Wrestling Federation, but the organization involved here in helping to bring back the giant panda. Quote, "The recovery of the panda shows that when science, political will, and engagement of local communities come together, we can save wildlife and also improve biodiversity." I'm a big fan of pandas. I don't know about you, Rachel. Although I find the giant panda, let me put it this way. I'm not as into that red panda, which kind of looks like a reddish brown bear type of thing. I'm much more into like the stereotypical black and white panda. Although I know I shouldn't be judging animals just based on their physical appearance, should I?
No, you shouldn't. I think I'm biased towards the black and white, the large pandas as well. However, something that I'm also very jealous about is that they have very large and flat molars, which makes it easier for them to eat bamboo shoots. So I think if I had similar molars, it would make my eating experiences more pleasurable.
You're saying you're jealous of pandas because they're more easily able to eat raw bamboo. That's interesting. I've never heard someone be disappointed that they're not more easily able to just eat raw bamboo. But hey, I mean, that's, you know what? That's a really specific thing. And I like that, because some people are just sort of like generally unhappy with life, but you've been able to determine like the shape of human teeth preventing you from comfortably eating raw bamboo is causing you distress. And I don't know that you can do much to fix that, but at least you've identified a really specific thing.
I'm not jealous of their lifespan though, which is roughly about 20 years. So not jealous about that.
Oh,
Just
I didn't
their
know
teeth.
that. I didn't
Yep.
I thought pandas live longer than that. Like I mean, what do I know about pandas? But I would have guessed that pandas had like a 40-year lifespan. I don't know why, but they don't. And, you know, that's something. But good news, although oftentimes I feel like it's a drop in the bucket if you consider all the different species that are endangered or extinct as a result of the Industrial Revolution and human activities on Earth. It's still good because, you know, the panda is a popular one with kids and people like it, like they find it cute. So maybe the PR value of saying, hey, we saved one, I think that'll probably be really good. I have some news from the Winston-Salem Journal about an off-duty firefighter who was at the River Ridge Tap House when he noticed signs that people inside the tap house were suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning. Now, as you may know, carbon monoxide is colorless, it's odorless, it's tasteless, which makes it difficult to detect if you don't have a carbon monoxide detector. The early symptoms of poisoning are headaches, dizziness, nausea, and vomiting. And oftentimes people write it off as being flu related, but it can get really, really bad, and actually significant exposure can cause death. And the firefighter reported the incident, and ambulances showed up, and they were able to treat 32 people that were showing symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning. This is fascinating to me because we often talk about, not so much with carbon monoxide poisoning, but people sometimes think, Rachel, okay, if I was on an airplane and I noticed that a terrorist got up and was starting to try to take over the plane, here's what I would do. And a lot of times I think it's really hard to know really what one would do in such a situation. I would like to think that if I saw that happening on a plane and I identified that I could maybe do something to trip up or stop the terrorist in some way, that I would act. But I think it's a little presumptuous. I truly don't know what it is that I would do if I was on a plane and I identified that that was going on. This is one of those situations where the firefighter could have just not noticed what was going on or decided that, it's probably better not to get involved. I'm going to head out. But the firefighter realized this is what's going on and actually took action, started bringing people outside, et cetera, et cetera. It's always interesting to me when you see successes of people acting in the moment, because I think it's really hard to know what any of us would do if presented with similar situations.
I believe if you're more acutely aware to an issue or topic that you have had some sort of interface with
Right.
in your job, then you are hopefully going to be equipped to handle it in a way that will be beneficial to the people who are suffering from any of the symptoms. But it's interesting, or not what's interesting, what's fascinating to me about this is the symptoms seem to be very subtle.
Yeah.
But if you're noticing it spanning over a larger group of people, I think that would put you kind of in closer tune with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, firefighters deal with smoke inhalation and carbon monoxide poisoning as part of their job. So it's different than sort of the average person saying, if I was on a plane and if I identified that someone was trying to take the plane hostage, here's how I would probably act, even though they're not individuals whose job generally, at least my job, doesn't relate to taking down terrorists on a day-to-day basis or would-be terrorists. So yeah, I think that that's definitely interesting. So people may have noticed that producer Pat was not here today. Pat actually is in jury duty today, and I am so curious. This is his first time, Rachel, that he's been called to jury duty, and I have no idea whether, because they call way more jurors than they actually need. Because they anticipate that some jurors will be ineligible or in some way unable to serve on a jury. It would be really great for the show tomorrow if Pat actually was on the jury. And if it's a really big case, then he might end up actually being on the jury for multiple days, although that's very, very rare. Have you ever been called to jury duty?
I have not been called yet. My mother was, and she was dismissed for reasons she said she is, quote, unsure of.
She doesn't know why she was dismissed. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, she was surmising that it was most likely due to the fact that it was a drug-related case, and they probably didn't want the sympathetic and empathetic Jewish mother sitting there.
Interesting.
But who really knows?
Well, in any case, we will hear from Pat tomorrow about that. I've been on a jury once, and it was the day of my 21st birthday, which I don't know if you have to be 18 or 21 to be on a jury, but on the day of my 21st birthday, I was on jury duty, and I assumed they don't want young people. I'm sure I'll be dismissed. I was in one of the first few people in terms of the number that was assigned to me, and they found no particular reason to dismiss me, and therefore I was on a jury for a self-defense trial. And I really lost faith in not only our justice system, but also in just much of American humanity by being on that jury, because very, very specifically, we were to decide whether a physical altercation involving two people was on the behalf of, let's call him person A, self-defense. So the story was person B approached and shoved person A inside of person B's own house. Person A responded by punching person B in the head. Police showed up, and person A was charged with having assaulted, battered, I guess it would be, person B. And what we were to decide was whether person A acted in self-defense because they were first accosted by person B, or if they were not acting in self-defense. Now, this is not like a colloquial understanding of self-defense. The judge instructed us very specifically. Self-defense law in Massachusetts stipulates that if you could reasonably leave the situation, you have a duty to retreat. So if we determine that person A, rather than retaliating to person B, could have just left the situation, by the definition of the law, it is not self-defense. And he read us the rules, and we were shown a map, sort of like a floor plan of where they were. And it turned out that indeed person A had a door right behind them that led to outside person B's house. After being shoved and intimidated, could have opened the door and left. So in my mind, based on the definition of self-defense, this was not self-defense by person A. Person A actually battered person B and should have been found guilty. The second we get into the jury room, two of the people on the jury say, it was self-defense. Person B shoved person A. Person A was just defending himself. And immediately myself and one other juror say, well, we have to decide on this based on the legal definition of self-defense, which holds that you have a duty to retreat. And if there was a reasonable way to exit the situation, that is actually the duty of person A. Person A could have turned around and walked out the door. Person A didn't. So actually they are guilty here. And the two people just said, no, but come on, self-defense. Well, I've been in situations like this. This is self-defense. We had no way of explaining to the two jurors that we are to decide not on the basis of our general idea of what self-defense is, but rather based on what we were told is the definition of self-defense. Anyway, didn't matter. We were in there for hours. Everybody was shocked that this is a case that was taking hours to deliberate, like it was a major crime of some kind. Ultimately, we all agreed on not guilty because we went back to the judge with some questions. And one of the questions was, are we to decide only whether person A acted in self-defense or not, assuming all other facts are true, including that person B had originally shoved person A? Or are we to first evaluate whether we even believe the basis for the story, which is that person B shoved person A? And the judge came back and said, it's all in your hands. And as soon as it was told to us that, hey, we're actually supposed to evaluate whether we even believe the story of person B or person A, at that point, there was a reasonable doubt about everything that took place, and we came back with a not guilty verdict. But it was shocking, Rachel, number one, that two of the six people, I believe it was six people on the jury, did not even understand what we were there to do. They did not understand the definition of the self-defense law that we were supposed to be using to decide. It was also insane to be stuck for 5 or 6 hours deliberating such a simple case. Hopefully that doesn't happen to Pat, because I'll tell you, by the end, it was getting pretty miserable. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't. But thankfully, we don't live in Florida or any other myriad of states who have the stand your ground law. And things probably would have progressed in a very negative fashion.
That's a Massachusetts thing, the duty to retreat. And absolutely, if we were in a different state, and many of our viewers and listeners are definitely in different states where the self-defense law is completely different and there is no such duty to retreat, and then it would have been a different case altogether. In fact, then it would have been obviously not guilty after 5 minutes of deliberation, and it would have been open and shut. So we'll talk to Pat tomorrow, hopefully, unless he gets put on some major case. Yeah. We looked up whether there had been any, I believe he's in Worcester County for this. And we were looking up whether there had been any like murders or anything that he could potentially be put on. And the last murder, I believe, in that county was in August, and it went to trial in September. So I don't think that there's any chance Pat would be put on some kind of major crime.
And you have to be 18 years of age.
You have to be 18. Okay. So for a while, I thought that on the first day I was eligible, on my 21st birthday, I was at jury duty. But actually, it was 3 years after my eligibility started. All right, remember, davidpakman.com/donate. Thank you to the handful or so of members who donated over the last 24 hours. We're raising money to do really, really great stuff. It's very important to me that we reach our fundraising goal. So please, please, please go to davidpakman.com/donate and donate what you can.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.